Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's our now bi-weekly show about Russia, Ukraine, and China, and everything what's happened in the world at this troubling times. Many innocent civilians, children, are being mercilessly killed in Ukraine by Russian invaders, and we will try to explain actually what's happening there and why it's happening just as well. Thank you, and I would like to introduce my uh, esteemed guest, the former. I once made a mistake calling him a general, but I think that he's absolutely incredible veteran of U.S. Armed Forces. So, while I'm not such an esteemed veteran of Soviet Union Armed Forces, so welcome, colleague, to the show, Chris Greco. How are you?
Спасибо, товарищ.
Da zdоровье. So, tell me, please, what you evaluate is the most important thing happened in the last, say, day or two?
Well, I'll tell you, Sasha, we had that guest, Pavel
Yes,
on the
we,
show. And I'll tell you, there's nothing we can talk about all this stuff that's going on. You've lived in Ukraine, so you can actually bring in a very special aspect of the whole thing. But I'm going to tell you that I've never seen this guy was in the middle of, basically a war. And his remarks were that we're going to defeat the Russians. We are going to defeat the Russians. Every Ukrainian says that. It's not like they say, oh, poor us. We're going to have, people are going to come in, they're going to destroy us and whatever else. No, Ukrainians say, we are going to fight you. We are going to fight you no matter where we are. We'll fight we'll fight with every weapon we have. We'll fight with, I mean, man, you get a population that is, and like you were saying, like you were saying the other day about, they're not only going to defeat the Russians, but they're gonna go into Russia. They're going to go into Moscow. They're going to take over Moscow. And I'm sitting back going, wow. I mean, you're getting blasted every day. You're getting bombed. And yet it's like, keep it coming, because we're not gonna lay down and take this. You're gonna suffer casualties, and we're gonna defeat you in the long run. That's amazing population. Just an amazing.
I'm going to tell you something very interesting. Think about Second World War. So, this history teaches us that it was Soviet Union who defeated Germans with the help of U.S., England, and few others.
Oh
No,
yes, yes,
it is
you're right.
not true at all. It was Ukraine who defeated the Germans.
Oh,
It was Ukrainian first front and second front. There were Belarusian first, second, and so on fronts. There was no Russian front. And you know why? Because the biggest army who opposed Soviet Union was army of General Vlasov. He is a Russian captured general who assembled army of 600,000 people, former Russians, who were fighting Soviet Union. They were all killed and defeated, and Vlasov was hanged and so on. But it doesn't matter. They hated Soviet Union and Soviet system and Stalin so much that they had arms in their hands fighting them. Ukraine is a very different story. Ukraine was, in a way, they never turned their arms against Soviet Union, except that in Western territories, they had, even before the war, there were people who were extremely opposed to Soviet Union because of the Holodomor, so-called, which killed about 3 million Ukrainians, or some people believe that it was more than that, but at least 3 million. That's undeniable. So Ukraine was the first and foremost producer of grain at that time in the 30s. So Stalin was taking all the grain out from Ukraine to feed up Russia and maybe some other republics. And Ukrainian people were mercilessly died because they had lack of food. That's how Ukrainian love Russians. So for them, Germans were obviously a tragedy, a foreign power, but they always believe, okay, Germans came, Germans will leave at some point, and the life goes on as usual. But not so with Russia. Russia is a cancer of the world society. Russia is building something which is absolutely hostile to the Western democracies, to all world. They invented few years ago some kind of a new terminology. Their terminology now is that there is something what called a Russian world. In Russian, it's Ruski Mir, Russian world. What does it mean, Russian world? It means necessarily all Russian people? Not really, because in Russia, if you start really to go in the ethnics of Russia, there are not a lot of Russian people, believe it or not.
Right.
There are a lot of Mongolians and Tatars and Mordvins people and Burat people and all kinds of nationalities and so on. So it's, as I said before in many programs, it's not really European nation any way you look at it. They have some people who look like Europeans, but they are through propaganda in last several years. Now they all believe in the Russian world. That's how they send their 19, 20 years old guys to die. Why? What for? To defeat Ukrainians who Putin said that they are the same people as Russians. It's one nation. So they are being killed, or better, like Zelensky asks them to give up and we will treat you properly, so you will be able either to serve with us or return to your country if you prefer, or so on. Of course, nobody will ever to return to their country, because you know what's happened during Second World War. Any Russians who were captives and returned back to USSR, they were going to concentration camp, to Gulag for 15 years. That's what happened to them, and most of them were being killed during the transportation and so on and so on. There is another problem with Russia. Don't forget that Stalin killed about 50 million people through gulags, through just mercilessly killing them or so on. Now, to have the systems that could hold millions and millions of captive people, so you have to first arrest them, then you have to try them, you have to transport them from one jail to another, and then finally to their final destination, to Gulag or so on. So to do all that, you need probably the same number of guards who
Yes.
will do that job.
Yep.
Now, let's think about something. If you will take 50 million of people who were jailed and died in Gulag, then you take 50 million of guards. Guess what? Those people who were tortured and died, most likely they never had kids or grandchildren. Now, the guards, they did have a lot of kids and a lot of grandchildren. So all these people were indoctrinated with the policies that Stalin is great, Soviet Union is great, Russia is great, and all others are nothing. We will prevail and we will own all world. So today's population of Russia is very easy to indoctrinate with Russian propaganda. They want to be indoctrinated because they are all children and grandchildren and grandchildren of former policemen, former guards in the concentration camps. And Ukraine was suffering just as much as any republics, but maybe even more so. So this is why today, if during Second World War, all Ukrainians really wanted the Germans to leave. Today, with Russians, no, no, we don't want you just to leave. We want you to all lie down and die and get out of here. And then I'm not so sure about going and take over Moscow, although I don't rule it completely out. They will go for sure and take over Minsk and Belarus for exactly cooperating with Russian murderers, allow them to use Belarus and actually send in some troops, according to what I hear. So this is where Ukraine is today. And Ukraine is now on the foreground of all the civilized world. And by the way, Ukraine doesn't need NATO. Ukraine doesn't need the European Union. NATO needs Ukraine. NATO needs a country that can take over Russians and beat them up. No, NATO country can do that.
That's right.
NATO can fight in Afghanistan,
I agree.
in Iraq, yes, maybe in Grenada they can fight. Not Russian army. Ukraine can do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this adversarial relationship between Ukraine and Russia, from what you told me about the history of it, isn't just, it's not just like within the last 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or 50 years or 100 years. It's existed for a lot longer than that. And I think that is just, it inculcates itself within the culture itself. You sit back and you say, I'm not going to, I'm okay with Russia coexisting, but they cannot coexist by means of invading my country, occupying my country. You can coexist, and that's fine. You're going to be an occupier, we're going to fight you. And this is what we're going to do. And I think that Pavel said it best, when I told him about cybersecurity. I said, you're thinking about like taking over electronically tanks, and his response was something like, no, I do my job by putting my finger on the trigger. So it was like, it wasn't, we're done with this nicey, sophisticated, we're going to go in there electronically, cybersecurity. No, we're going to shoot them and kill them. That's what we're going to do. And suddenly it just dawned on me, yeah, I guess this is war. This is no kidding, people with AK-47s just defeating occupiers. So that's the deal. So I mean, I had to really listen to him go through that to really understand that this is no longer about, I mean, I'm sure that Zelensky has probably told his negotiators, we'll be okay with stuff until the Russians start getting hardcore, and then all we're going to want is Russian surrender. So that's going to be it. Unconditional surrender from the Russians. That's our negotiating point. You don't want to negotiate. You don't want to surrender. We're done negotiating. Come on in, bring as many people as you want. You're going to lose material. You're going to lose pilots. You're going to lose tanks, trained troops, because although I understand, Sasha, these are 19 and 20-year-olds, still you're going to have experienced officers in there too. And man, I'll tell you, if I were Ukrainian, I'd be sitting there saying, I can kill these 19, 20-year-olds, or I can kill that officer. I kill that officer, and suddenly there's leadership is going down the tubes. Now you got 19 and 20-year-olds with weapons that they don't know what to do with.
Russia lost in the last 2 weeks 3 army generals. How about that?
Yeah.
How stupid you can be to lose your generals. Oh my God. The stupidity is incredible. It's just, it cannot be compared to anything. I've never heard such thing.
Well, it's impulsivity, right, Sasha? It's Hey, look, the guy invaded a country. He literally went and invaded a country. And it's interesting because people are sitting there saying, buddies of mine that are military, they're sitting there saying, isn't that what Hitler did? Didn't Hitler invade Soviet Union thinking he could take it in like 2 weeks and he would get to Moscow and that would be it? Isn't Putin thinking the same way? I'm just going to go to Kiev. I'm going to go straight to Kiev. They're just going to lie down, and that's going to be it with that. And, in 2 weeks, we'll have Ukraine and we'll have this done with. And I think, he's facing the same problem, same issues as Hitler did when he went to Operation Barbarossa, So I think he's getting, the Russians are kind of getting a taste of their own medicine here from the standpoint of you invade somebody, especially. And I mean, they've invaded Czechoslovakia and Poland and all that. But you know something? And they took it over, and they, Warsaw Pact, they put Marxists in charge and whatever else. Then Lech Walesa came along. All of a sudden, all these people suddenly said, no, we don't want this anymore. We don't want the Soviet control anymore. And they brought in their troops to try to quell it. And, it just didn't work. And all of a sudden, the wall came down, and that was it with that. Interesting that they always talk about the wall coming down, but the wall really didn't come down. What happened was Checkpoint Charlie, the mayor of East Berlin made a comment that he was going to start to release people to West Berlin through Checkpoint Charlie upon receipt of new visas. Well, people took that as being Checkpoint Charlie was open. So they went whole bore into Checkpoint Charlie. So many that they were calling the Soviets, and they were calling East Germans and everything else, saying, hey, what do we do here? And finally, someone just opened up Checkpoint Charlie. And that was it. So everyone come pouring through.
That's history.
So I think it's interesting how the Ukraine. I almost started crying when this guy Pavel was talking, because it was kind of like, man, you are in a freaking bunker, and you're getting bombed, and yet it's kind of like, we're going to defeat them. We're going to defeat them, and it's like, man, when you have a country with that type of national will, I don't see how the Russians are going to make no mistake, with just pure force and morally inept people, they are going to take Ukraine, but they will never, ever hold that country. They are going to lose so many people getting it and then trying to hold it. They're going to give up, and they're going to give up. It may take them a year, 2 years, whatever it is, but they're going to finally give up and walk away from that place.
Tell me one thing. So far, almost 3 weeks, they captured only one not really significant city, although I'm sorry to say it. So, talking about city of Kherson, which is very close to Odessa, by the way.
You're right. Point taken.
So far, they can destroy cities.
Yes.
They do with Kharkiv, for example, and so on. Now, destroy city and to take city, there are two actually different things, because once you destroy city, but population is still there and they're all armed, how are you going to take that city? I don't know. Now, Kiev is a different story. Kiev, very well guarded. They have all kind of the anti-aircraft missiles, and of course they have Stingers, they have javelins, they have almost any things what you can imagine, plus all citizens are armed, at least with Kalashnikovs.
Yes. Yep.
So it remains to be seen how they can ever take Kyiv, and if they will not take Kyiv, and Zelensky will be continue to aspire Ukrainians to continue fight, then okay, what is there for Russians at the end of the day?
That's right.
How well are they doing then?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to be gained by this war. Nothing. I guess, but then I'm sitting back in the United States, and everything is fine. Everything is fine back here. We're not under duress or anything else. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I said, what would happen if we were invaded? What would happen if the United States was invaded? Man, I'll tell you, I'd be getting my rifle, I'd be getting my ammo, and I'd be defending my little plot of land. They could bomb me, they could do whatever, but to my last breath, I would defend my family and I would defend my home. And we've never had that, Sasha. We've never had a threat against this country. We've never had to fend off invaders and occupiers and all that. We have no idea what these people are going through. We sit there and, we'll support Ukraine. Well, that's real nice. I appreciate all that, but we have no idea what they're going through. We're sitting down watching Roku TV. We're sitting down doing our streaming, and, we have our coffee in the morning, and, we have a nice, roof over our head and whatever else. These people are suffering and dying for their country. I mean, we always talk about, fighting for our country. They're fighting for their country. I mean, I really, really believe about that. And it's interesting. And China's sitting back, reaping in the benefits of this whole thing. I mean, their only ally in the world, basically, big one, is North Korea. So now they're looking to Russia to kind of like, well, you want a little bit of military aid, maybe we'll give you a little bit of military aid, maybe we'll do this, but they're going to want something in return. Putin is not the only one that's morally inept. Xi Jinping is going to sit back and go, sure, we'll help you out, Vlad, but I'll tell you something. When all this stuff is done, whichever way it goes, we want something from you. And I think their main thing is South China Sea, because South China Sea has, I think, 5 billion barrels of oil that they can get from the South China Sea. So they have the same deal. They want to go in and they want to take some of these islands and they want to make a nice oil drilling platform out there so they can start to make their own oil. So it's interesting how China is coming into play here. And I'll tell you something, I'd be scared, not if Ukrainians aren't scared of anything, it seems. But if I were Putin, I'd be scared, because sooner or later, China's going to start putting in Chinese cell towers in their country, in Russia. And when they do that, Russia's done. I mean, that's going to be over. But I mean, that's my opinion.
No, I think that China would have to really wait out the consequences of helping Russians, especially militarily, because all world is so much for Ukraine and against Russia. And actually, it appears to me that the West, US, and the G7, which US is part of, I think the decision has been made to completely isolate Russia from the world. They will not going into nuclear confrontation with Russia, let them leave, but outside of the civilized world. You have your own civilization, what you say, the Russian world, just keep it, stay there with your Russian world, and let's see what's happened in the next few years. You will be bankrupt very easily and very soon. Yes, Russia will go bankrupt, and China has no business to be associated with the country that is ostracized all over the world, which is going bankrupt in the near future. China is not stupid. They are not. They're always looking 10 years ahead, 50 years ahead, 100 years ahead. And they understand that their interests are with the West, with the Western civilization, not with the Russian world. I'm sorry to say that, my dear Russian friends, but you are all intoxicated. You are all barraged by this Russian propaganda. So I treat you as a seriously sick people. Who knows, maybe the medicine will become available for you at some point.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm sure that our evaluation of the war in Ukraine right now is very different from the situations happening in Russia. Although I do know that there was a story put out that had a female producer of one Russian TV channel that stood behind the broadcaster with a message that she was behind Ukraine and whatever else, and she was immediately arrested. And evidently, the current jail time is 15 years for something like that in Russia.
Yeah, she prepared a statement which she pre-recorded before she's done that, and what she said there was that she is ashamed of being part of the Russian propaganda. She is ashamed for lying for so many years, and she doesn't want to be anymore, to have any part of that. That was her message. So she probably knew that she will be arrested. She will be dealt with harshly, but she could not continue to do what she's done for years.
Right. I mean, a lot of people in this United States here, in America, talk about activism and, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fight for whatever or whatever else. And it's funny how very few people actually stand up themselves. I mean, with a group, it's one thing because it's groupthink, but stand up themselves and say, hey, I've had enough. And the sign, Mark Lee was telling me, the sign did say at the top, "No war." And then after that, there was some Russian and Russian Cyrillic and whatever else. But so it was an interesting video of that whole thing while the broadcaster was broadcasting, and this person behind her with the sign. So people are starting to get. The Vietnam War, I was in high school during the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was really a way of, I think, determining how much the American citizen was willing to take from the standpoint of war and what we were doing and how we were doing it and everything else. And I think that afterwards they said enough, So it's I think the Russians are going to do the same thing. And it's interesting because I'm wondering if China is undermining Russia. I wonder if they are contributing to that anti-war sentiment in Russia. Because China, like you say, China doesn't want to get involved with Russia from that standpoint, maybe from the humanitarian point of view, whatever else. They only have a handful of allies. That's it. And Russia is not one of them. You're right. Russia has always hated China. They were at one point in the 1970s, they were hoping the U.S. would ally with the Soviet Union and take on China, and I thought, wow, that's really a far reach, but they never have liked China, even though they're their neighbors.
Okay, Chris, thank you for your outlook at what's happening. And I would like to remind everybody that we will have our next program by Friday, 11 o'clock, sorry. And I hope that Ukraine will be victorious, maybe even by that time, although I'm optimist. I always think about what's good for the world. And the defeat of Russia is definitely what the world has to strive for and get rid of once and for all this cancerous country. Remember that Russian people, some people say, well, they're innocent, they were duped into it by propaganda or so on. No, Russian people are working and their taxes that they're paying are going to finance this horrible war. They are electing their president, Vladimir Putin. So there is a responsibility for not only Russia as a country or Putin, this murderer, but also for all Russian people. We'll talk more about it next Friday. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.